Hello, and welcome to Parent Orientation Part 2. My name is Marjorie Ellis, and I'm the Director of the Career Development Center. This part of Parent Orientation is going to focus on the career planning process. We start with another Kathy cartoon. Why couldn't you tell your career counselor what your goal in life is, Kathy? She says, I don't know what it is. When I was in grade school, my goal was to graduate. In high school, my goal was to graduate. In college, my goal was to graduate. She says, so what? It's time to set new goals. It isn't that easy, Andrea. I've run out of things to graduate from. We recognize, again, that it's a difficult thing to try and figure out what you want to do. And you can feel extremely overwhelmed with the whole process of figuring out what do I do next. So we want your son and daughter to recognize that it's not something that, again, that they would wait until the last minute to do in their last semester, but that this is something that they can be planning for throughout their whole 4 years here. They can be thinking about what to do my freshman, sophomore, junior year. They can make it a timeline and do things incrementally so that it doesn't overwhelm them all at once. So we're going to take a look at how do they go through this whole process from freshman year, junior, sophomore, junior, and senior year. So the freshman timeline kind of starts with this: adjusting to college life. We recognize, again, they've been living in your house. You've been waking them up for college. You've been making sure that they get out to the bus on time. You've been encouraging them to do their homework and do their special projects. And you've probably even helped them with those projects. But now they're having to adjust to being away from home, being away from all of the rules, and recognizing that they're having to do this on their own. So we recognize that that's going to take some adjusting. And then they're going to be exploring interests, meeting different people, taking different classes, looking at different majors. So we know that that takes a little bit of time to just kind of get your feet wet. So during this time, we encourage them to visit the Peer Career Center that we talked about earlier. That's right outside McAllister's Deli in the Student Union. To go in there to kind of start exploring what some different careers are, looking what their skills and abilities are, to kind of get a jump start on, here's what I think I like, here's how I can get some exposure to that. And then getting involved in campus organizations and clubs. There are tons of opportunities for them to get involved in the community where they're learning about, again, leadership skills and supervisory skills and time management skills. So there's ample opportunity during their freshman year to really begin this whole process that's going to bring them closer to figuring out what they want to do. I'd hate to have a job where you had to get up early in the morning. I'd hate to have a job where you stayed in the same place all day. I'd hate to have a job where you had to be nice to everybody. I'm sure that you recognize your son or daughter in one of these cartoons. And most of us have been there ourselves, where we know what our personality type is, but we don't always take it into consideration when we're thinking about what we want to do. I'm reminded of a story that my colleague tells about a student who kind of had it in her head that she knew the quality of life she wanted to live. She knew that she wanted to be a professional, to wear a suit, and she wanted to have a nice briefcase, and she wanted to work in a building that had numerous high floors and marbled walls, and she wanted to get in the elevator and go up to the top floor and work with lots of money. We're like, wow. You got pretty vivid imagination. But we thought, maybe she could start in banking. That's not such a far stretch. So we said, maybe you could consider working in a bank over the summer, maybe get a teller job just to kind of get a feel for the environment and see if banking might be something that you can do. And we encouraged her to come back and share with us what that was like. And she was thinking, yeah, because there's lots of money in banks and I think I want to do that. She came back to my colleague Sharon and said, oh my God, you didn't tell me that banking was all about customer service. So sometimes your son and daughter may not really understand, that just because a job may sound really good or it may sound glamorous doesn't mean that they're a good fit for it. Maybe there are some other things that they need to take into consideration. I'm also reminded of a student who told me that she wanted to be a marine biologist, but after talking to her, she realized she didn't want to live anywhere near the water. I think that was going to cause a problem. So again, we're here to walk them through that process to get a better idea of what they want to do. So the sophomore and junior years are figuring out what they want to do. Again, it's taking some elective courses that kind of pique your interest and broaden your skills, making a relationship with your faculty and your academic advisors and your career counselors to really see what they know, what connections do they have with the world of work, with other colleagues, with other people that are in the field. Getting involved with leadership opportunities, leadership positions, doing research on the field to see what it's really all about. Do your homework. I remember there was a student once who told me, he said, I think I'm going to change my major. I said, why? He said, well, I don't like the math. There's too much math involved, in the major that I have. He was in engineering, and he said, I just think I'm going to do something like maybe accounting because the math's easier. And I said, okay, let's talk that out. What do you know about yourself that says, here's what I need in order to be happy in my job? And he started describing how he liked being outside and he liked working with his hands and being really creative. And I said, well, that's good. What are some things that you know you don't want to do? And he said, oh, I'd hate to have one of those jobs where you got to sit behind a desk and look at a computer all day in numbers. And I said, you just told me you wanted to be an accountant. And he goes, oh. Now, certainly he had the aptitude to be an accountant, but when he looked at it, he realized that he would really be pretty miserable doing that kind of job and that maybe he should just buckle down and handle the math that goes along with being an engineer. And again, researching careers in the Peer Career Center will be able to give you a clear idea of what the field is all about, what kinds of things go along with people who are successful in that field. So the prince and the princess lowered their expectations and lived reasonably contentedly forever after. Now, we use this to illustrate that sometimes, again, students have a wild-eyed view of what a career field is like, and they haven't really talked to anybody who's doing that job, but they might feel good about doing it and think, of course, this makes sense. In their own mind, they've rationalized why this might be a good fit or why what they're thinking might be true. I'm reminded again, my colleague had a story of a student who came in and said she wanted to go out and do good for others and she wanted to go into social work. And so they've been talking about, how much money you needed to do to make in order to manage your life. And she thought she had a pretty good plan. Her parents were doctors, and she kind of looked at their budget, when they were having difficult times and what they were able to live on in the house of, 6 people. And so she thought, well, it's just me. And so I probably only need $80,000 to live on. Surely that'll work as a social worker. Now imagine the laughter and, this strange look on our faces when we said, do you know anything about what social workers make? So, she had to make some adjustments to her thinking. She still continued to do social work, but she also decided to do some other things on the side. But we had to kind of give her a really realistic view of how much money careers actually make and how much you need in order to live on. So sometimes we have to burst their bubble, but sometimes we're just trying to give them a reality check. So continuing with the sophomore and junior years, we recognize again that it's not always about jobs, as I mentioned before, but volunteer experiences are also extremely valuable, whether they're volunteering in a community or at a church or in a club or an organization. You are developing some wonderful transferable skills. And at this time, you're usually going to try and figure out what you want your major to be. So you're going to need to declare a major here. So you're going to need to have narrowed it down to a couple of things, maybe 3 things. Maybe something that you want to major in, something you want to minor in, and something you still want to just explore some interest with. And then if you haven't been already, get a summer job. Get some kind of job so you can have something else to start building on your resume. And then talk to people who are doing what you think you want to do. Your faculty, your advisors, your career counselor, friends of the family, take advantage of those networking opportunities to really get some information. Again, shadow professionals who are doing what you think you want to do. Maybe it's somebody in your church, maybe it's somebody in your neighborhood, maybe it's your local doctor or the mayor of your town. But go up and ask people how they do what they do. Generally, if they enjoy their job, they're all too willing to share with you how they got there. And you want to start building your resume for an internship. Again, an internship may not be required, but it's strongly encouraged. And for internships, you're going to need a resume. On our website, you can go and look for sample resumes, but also our counselors can help you develop your resume from beginning to end. And again, I say it very strongly, get an internship. Get your foot in the door with people who are doing what you think you want to do. So the senior year, we want you to evaluate what you've been doing. We want you to really be talking to your counselor about your skills and abilities and the things that you want to kind of focus on. This should also be a time where you now, during your senior year, you've been working on your resume all along, but now you're ready to revise it. And then you want to practice your interview skills. A lot of times people have no idea how they react under pressure. So doing a practice interview with our office or a mock interview with our office is an excellent thing to do. We do them as career counselors. Our graduate students assist with practice interviews, and we actually have actual recruiters, employers, that donate their time to come back and do practice interviews with our students. This is an invaluable service where you sit down, you work with that person, we videotape you, and you get to see and watch yourself and see how you perform under pressure. And that's really important, to make those mistakes with us than in an actual interview. This reminds me of a student that I worked with who was really quite nervous about the interview process. And we had worked through some things, and she had an interview the next day, and I said, come back and tell me how it went. She said, I will. And she had one last question. She said, how should I wear my hair? And I said, well, as long as you're not going to be distracting by playing with it or pulling in your hair, you should be fine however you want to wear it. I said, I'm not going to tell you to wear it in a bun or a ponytail. She said, okay. She came in the next day, and I said, how did it go? She goes, oh my God, you have no idea what happened. I said, what? What happened? She said, I felt like I needed just a little extra luck, to calm my nerves. And my grandmother gave me this ring for luck, and it was kind of a jagged ring. And she started to play with her hair, and her hand and the ring got caught in her hair. So now she's in the middle of her interview trying to figure out how not to look crazy while trying to pull her finger out of her ring that's stuck in her hair. Now, granted, she was able to get through the interview. She was able to get her finger out of the ring that was stuck in her hair, and they laughed about it. But a lot of times we do things when we're under pressure that we're not aware of. Our hands get all sweaty. We don't make good eye contact. I'm also reminded of a time when I was in school. I was really kind of worried about public speaking, and I was nervous about a class that I was going to have to take where they were going to be judging my public speaking. So I decided to take a voice class that would give me an opportunity to stand up in front of people and kind of work through some of my fears. And I must not have read through the syllabus very well because, the class was going really well. And towards the end of the semester, the professor said, okay, for the exam in this class, we're not going to be in this room. We're going to be in the studio. The mic's going to come out of the ceiling. There'll be no podium in the room. You won't have their classmates around. And you're going to have to remember 3 songs from memory. And you're going to have to be videotaped. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be on tape making a fool of myself. I'm going to get too nervous. I'm going to forget the words. So I go home that night and I'm practicing my song, and I'm trying to find the easiest song possible, and I'm trying not to forget the words, and I go in and I do my songs and I don't forget the word, and I'm really, really, really proud of myself until I watch the video. I realized that I didn't have anything to do with my hands because there was nothing for me to hold on to. And so I must have done every little ballet move with my hand over my head, behind my back, lifting my leg in the air like I'm a little teapot. And the last song I was singing, holding both of my ears, like Dumbo. Now, I don't know why I did that, but I guess I realized that when I get nervous, I pull my ear. And so I must have been really nervous that day because I was pulling both of my ears. So I'm not going to suggest that your son or daughter is going to go into an interview and pull their ears, but they probably should do some practicing with someone who's going to be very honest with them to help them through practice interviewing and helping them through what their nervousness is. Again, going to the job fairs, going to the career action days, the programs that we provide in the student union, the workshops that we provide on resume writing, on interviewing, on job searching, on what to expect your first year on the job. We provide every opportunity that your son or daughter can think of to get the jump on being prepared. And then again, researching employers thoroughly so that they know what that field is all about, what that company is all about, so that they have something to contribute in the interview. And then also thinking about, if I'm not sure if I'm going to go into my job right away, am I considering graduate school? We also assist with that too, in how to select your graduate program, putting together your essay, looking at who you might select to be references for you. So again, your senior year is chock full of last-minute details, but if you've been thinking about the timeline all along, this shouldn't be too much of a stretch for you. It shouldn't be too overwhelming. Again, looking again, we said as options for graduate school. And one more thing for the senior year, look at yourself, the total package. What kind of skills do you have, your values, your abilities, your interests, and your personality? Have that kind of neatly in your mind, what you have to offer, so that you feel really comfortable sharing that information with others. The online career account. This is something that we've started in our office, and it's called Career Gear. This is where students are able to upload their resume into a database. All of the resumes are collected in this database. It allows students to be able to look into that database and see all the jobs that are posted there, when companies are coming to campus for interviews, to sign up for interviews. Companies are then, that we've approved, are able to go into this database from their end and look at the resumes that are in there to do a selection of, I'm looking for English majors with a certain GPA, and if your resume falls within that, then they will be printing out your resume and contacting you through your career account. This works for you while you're in school, but also even after you graduate as an alum. So this will give you a chance to connect and interview on campus, to know when they're coming to campus for informational interviews, and also to connect with recruiters that are not going to be able to make it to campus, but are still interested in recruiting our students. So again, this account information can be found at careers.appstate.edu. So when do your students hear this message? You know, we go to their classes, to their clubs and organizations, because we know that if we sat in our office waiting for them to show up and discover us, they never would. So again, we try and get into the classes, we go to some of their club meetings, and we do one-on-ones. As I said, our counselors are divided up by college, so they can come in and make a 45-minute to an hour-long presentation with their career counselor. And then the workshops and things that we put on in the student union, we do resume rescue clinics over here, we do workshops on internships, we have all kinds of career fairs that are for all majors, for education majors, for internships and volunteer, the graduate and professional schools fair. There are a lot of things that we're bringing to the table for your son and daughter to take advantage of, to know what's going on, to try to get the jump on their career. So your student responsibility is to start exploring. You know, I'm reminded, we do a lot of these programs and we advertise them every year on our listserv, on our website, on posters, on flyers, at the bus stop. And still, sometimes students fail to pay attention. I'm reminded of a student who was quite angry with me that he had missed our career fair. But he was angry because I hadn't called him personally to make sure he remembered. So again, we've got all of these services at your son or daughter's fingertips, but all they have to do is take advantage of it and start the exploring, and we're going to help them through that process. You bet I can show initiative, sir. Just say the word. Again, they're so used to being told what to do, sometimes they're still waiting for that. And so our job is to help them get through that process, not wait for me to call them and tell them to come to the fair, but actually put it down on their calendar or leave themselves a note to remind themselves that they need to take advantage of what's going on. But again, we recognize that students will procrastinate. They will wait to the last minute to do things. But even with all of that procrastination, our office is here to help. This concludes Part 2.